My name's Alan Moore. I write comics. When I started in comics 4 or 5 years ago, we didn't get no respect. It was a case where comics were seen as a juvenile medium where they were throwaway items. They were just cheap four-colour trash. That's changed. Over the last 4 or 5 years, you've had comics done on every subject from sort of homosexual rights to the Holocaust in the Second World War. The range of subject matter has widened immensely. We are actually dealing with adult stories now. So listen here, you dandified git. Just who the hell do you think you are? I'm Alan Moore. I'm a comic book messiah for the 1990s. And having risen from my humble Terrace Street origins and having survived my tenure as one of the Dole Q millions, I've now become a successful small businessman of no mean repute, and I believe that this is the face of success in Mrs. Thatcher's Britain. You mean somebody actually pays you? You make a living out of all this? What the hell do you do? I do comics. I do, well, any sort of writing pertaining to comics.
Comic writer, then? You just write comics?
Oh, I write comics, and I consider that to be as worthy as any other form of endeavour. You wouldn't have said to Stravinsky that he just did music.
Oh, so it's art, is it? You're a purveyor of culture. Well, what is this art that we should be thanking you for, then?
Yeah, I'd say it was art. Comics, on the other hand, are a little bit better than most art, because any kid who's got 30 pence in his pocket, 40 pence, can go down to the corner newsagents and buy a piece of work that people have put a lot of honest endeavour into. It's not something that you have to have a sort of a charge account to appreciate. It's not something that you need a vast education in the classics to appreciate. It's something that is within reach of anybody. There is a red and angry world. Red things happen there. The world eats your wife, eats your friends, eats all the things that make you human. And you become a monster. And the world just keeps on eating.
The original Swamp Thing was portrayed as a man who somehow had turned into this weird hybrid plant creature. When I took over in '82, I decided to change it around. What I did was to make it a plant with delusions of grandeur. A plant that had somehow managed to convince itself that it was a human being. And having done that, I found that I'd got a character with possibilities that went far beyond those of the general mainstream of comics characters. The issues that Swamp Thing deals with are ones that are very rarely touched upon in other comics.
I stand in an orchard of street signs and parking meters. From across the wilderness city, the wind blows fragments of music, percussive, robotic, distant. My consciousness seeps out through the filaments and shoots. In Coventry, the Residents' Protection Group creep through an overgrown department store bristling with guns and tension. In the cosmetics department, an escaped tiger treads carefully through the spilled lipsticks. In one episode of Swamp Thing, we had an entire tropical rainforest bursting up through the streets of New York and smothering the city in vegetation. In the resultant chaos and carnage, all of the animals escaped from the local zoo, so that you have parakeets roosting on top of street lamps and escaped tigers padding through the cosmetics department of the local chain store. What we were trying to suggest is that even though mankind can cover nature and smother the wilderness with a layer of concrete and cement, even though mankind can erect huge, powerful and impressive-looking buildings, that underneath our feet, underneath the buried pipes and the buried cables, nature is still there. The wilderness is still there. And though man might boast of having conquered nature, that's not the case. For if nature were to shrug or to merely raise its eyebrow, then we should all be gone.
Since the Industrial Revolution, we've had a situation where you almost get mankind pitted against the environment. If you hear the way that people have talked about the relationship between man and nature, it's been in terms of man triumphing over nature, of man beating back nature and imposing his own will upon the natural world. We are incredibly arrogant about the planet that we're living on. We somehow assume that we can do anything to the world and it will always be there and it will always look after us, and that's not the case. It's okay ignoring that stuff because it's too depressing or too frightening. It's okay ignoring wiping out of various species because, well, you know, I mean, what's a panda or two between friends? Do the blue whales really matter to us that much? This organism that we're living on, this planet, is so incredibly finely balanced that whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons of the earth. If you spit upon the earth, you spit upon mankind.
One of my favourite sequences in Swamp Thing is where he realises that with all of his vast powers, he could actually do something towards saving the world. I could do it. Could restore Africa's crumbling topsoil to the loam from which rich jungles sprang. And why stop there? Why not rebuild the forests of the Amazon, less green now than an average suburbia and shrinking by the day? I could drop grapes into the mouths of all the hungry children, turn the Gobi and Sahara into green and rippling meadows, give the widows roses and the old men strawberries. For am I not a god? I could touch all this world with wilderness as I touch Gotham, could transform this planet to a sphere of perfumes, colours and full bellies. I could save mankind. I could do anything. Anything. But of course, once he's considered all the implications, Swamp Thing does nothing, coming to the following conclusions. Is this then what it is to be a god? To know and never do? To watch the world wind by and in its windings find content? If I should feed the world, heal all the wounds man's smouldering industries have made, what would he do? Would he renounce the wealth his sawmills bring? Step gently on the flowers instead and pluck each apple with respect for this abundant world in all its providence? No. He would pump more poisons, build more mines, safe in the knowledge that I stood on hand to mend the biosphere, endlessly covering the scars he could now endlessly inflict. The world at the moment seems to be a bit of a runaway train. It's getting faster and faster and faster. Nobody has got the faintest idea what the hell's going on. But one thing that is certain is that it's all changing, and it's changing really, really rapidly. And you've got kids who are supposed to make some sense of this huge and imposing world that's looming over us when they've barely been able to make sense of the world that we've had for the past 20 years. And to do that, I don't really think personally that the education system's up to it. What I think is that people these days get their information from all of the much despised sort of vulgar media sources that people have been trying so hard to ban for the past 40 years. Television, movies, comics, rock and roll records. That is the main way that kids sort of soak up all this info. So if in these sort of basically silly sort of funny books and things I can actually get over some information, if I can help the education process in a bright four-colour comic book way that kids are actually going to want to read, then I'd say that's enough of a contribution. If I thought I'd done that, I think I'd be happy.